when AWS was first becoming a thing, AWS being Amazon's cloud, blah, blah, blah. When AWS was first becoming a thing, they were centered towards developers, towards engineers. Now, as they grew, as they got larger, they had to kind of go back and put on these enterprise-grade features as more enterprises adopted them, and they adapted rather, changed, grew, did what they had to do.
Yeah.
But like when I go back to the example of like Heroku, at least from outside looking in, they didn't adapt as well. They kept centered towards this market of the individual dev, and they tried in the enterprise space, it seemed like, but it just wasn't as much success. I believe they actually they got acquired, I think, by Salesforce.
Oh, okay.
I think for like a couple $100 million. Here, let me look it up. Let's see. What was it? Heroku acquisition. Yeah, by Salesforce. Back in 2010. For $212 million is what it says. And Heroku is like, I mean, they've been doing this story for a long time. But there's a ton of reasons. Like I said, all that little enterprise stuff that's required, why Heroku couldn't really be adopted en masse, because I don't really think anybody loves having to manage their own infrastructure. So my question jumps into next, what's that middle ground? What's the in-between, right? How do you expose the key tenets that enterprises are interested in maintaining themselves and being able to manipulate themselves that are critical for them and their business? How do you capture 80% of that and also build an experience that is delightful to developers? It's consuming my mind.
Well, from a super non-technical perspective, it's an interesting concept because it doesn't challenge, but it redistributes or repositions a thought in product development, like called the law of the customer. And finding new service, I think that's kind of where, or what'll drive innovation is finding new customers. Like every business is always in the look for new customers. How can we apply to new user bases? But the idea of viewing your internal developers as customers can allow you to move forward and move through different innovation in a way that benefits the company. So I guess I've never... Do you see any other opportunities for that? And maybe we can get back to the whole the platform piece of it as far as a deployment. But are there any other thoughts that when you think of seeing the developer as a customer of services, what else enterprises could be looking to give them or looking to assist there?
Well, I was actually having a little bit of this discussion today. What I lean towards is organizations should be viewing what they're building, this platform of sorts that they're building to abstract infrastructure away as a product. I think it should be thought of as a product. That way you can apply all of the product development things we've learned over the years, and your customer, as defined, should be your internal developers. They have specific needs, and there should always be this driving of I'm trying to delight my customer.
Yeah, improve the system.
And what impacts that would cause. What actually are the positives of that? I think, just off the top of my head, you're definitely going to increase productivity in the sense that you're able to deliver key components faster.
Absolutely.
There's the kind of non-tangible, keeping your developers happy, just retention in general, not burning them out as easily, because they can go and work and be creative and not have to deal with the mind-numbing minutia of infrastructure in the way that they shouldn't have to, Those are just a couple key items, but I think they should focus on just building something that serves developers, that gives them this ability to create, and don't make it so complicated. Like I like actually these 5 tenants. There's this, I think we talked about it a little bit on one of the podcasts, but there's already this whole ideal around internal developer platforms that I really like. Right. And there's kind of 5 core capabilities that any internal development platform needs. And it breaks it down here pretty nicely. App config management, manage application configuration in a dynamic, scalable, and reliable way. Great. Infrastructure orchestration, orchestrate your infrastructure in a dynamic, intelligent way, blah, blah, blah. Environment management, deployment management, all with role-based access control kind of baked in throughout. These are 5 core capabilities, they say components here, of an internal developer platform. Now, the tools that we talk about a lot of times, CI/CD, specific tools, tools like Terraform, Vault, Kubernetes, like they all play in specific areas of these 5 capabilities. But your platform is made up of a ton of these different tools, right, used to then provide this specific capability to developers. That's how I would think about it. And when I'm talking with customers, it helps because they're not even aware a lot of the time that what they're trying to do is build an internal developer platform.
Yeah.
They don't
Just
understand.
see it as a bunch of patchwork that allows them to eventually release.
Yeah. And they are just solving one problem at a time and trying to do it. But what ends up happening is because they're solving one problem at a time, they're not really building towards the ideal of or enabling self-service so developers can come and actually get this infrastructure themselves. So what ends up happening is they then own each component, and all requests for that has to still be routed through their team, and they're still the bottleneck. So it like just puts load on that team constantly.
Exactly.
And there's no way out of it. Like you have to now you're building the platform and having to maintain it and do everything without having self-service and fulfill the requests. It's like it's a wild combination of things. So this team in that type of organization ends up growing and growing and growing and being bigger and bigger and bigger. Instead of, hey, we could keep the core team to a reasonable level, enable self-service so that they can create these things themselves. I don't have to manually go and trigger this for them to have that capability. And then we can work on deeper levels of automation and security that we bake into the platform. Essentially, then we can focus on features of the platform type of thing.
So let's say you're a developer at a company. How would you go about looking to make these changes or advocate for these changes within your own company? Is it a matter of picking the correct technologies that currently exist? Is it a matter of creating communities of practice and hoping that you can get enough sign-off and enough people to affect change in how the standards are met within the enterprise?
That's an interesting question. As a developer, I think you're in a weird position because you're kind of at the mercy of what's already there. Like, if you develop these skill sets and you understand infrastructure and automation and things like that, you'll end up taking on some more infrastructure automation tasks, cloud-oriented tasks, etc. on your team. But there's really already, most likely, teams that are trying to focus on solving these types of problems, and they're just not going about it in a way that is truly scalable to all of these teams, right? So you kind of got to get an idea of the landscape around you, like what teams are working on what, how do I interface and understand who is in that department or on that team, and then work closely with those people to figure out what's actually going on.